So I'm Amra Begic. I'm working for the Memorial Center as a deputy director. So here in the Memorial Center, I'm for the last 17 years of my life. And actually, you know, mostly people asking how it is to work for the Memorial Center. And usual answer is that it is definitely not easy, because all of us that we are working in here, we are family members of the genocide victims. So during the genocide, 1995 genocide, my father, my grandpa, and 26 cousins and my best friend were killed. So when I decided to come back to Srebrenica, I was not thinking about possibility to work at this place, especially because in 2003, when I came back to Srebrenica, we didn't have memorial here in Srebrenica. We just had a few burials at the cemetery site. So in 2003, when I decided to come back, I decided just to come back home, because I found, actually I realized that wherever I was not at my place. That was not the place where I wanted to stay. So I was moving around, traveling between my mom, she was already in Srebrenica, my sisters in Sweden, in Tuzla, you know, so, and I used to live in Sarajevo. So one day I just decided to come back in Srebrenica, and just a year and a half after, I was offered to start to work for the Memorial Center, which was not easy decision actually, because I knew that it is hard subject, but also I was happy to be here, to think in a way that I will be here when my father is finally identified.
Okay, my name is Hassan Hassanovic. I work at Srebrenica Memorial Center. So it's been 14 years since I've been here. I am a survivor of this genocide. I survived the death march in July 1995. Unlike my father, my twin brother, and my uncle, I'm the only one who survived that march. And all of them are actually buried here across the place where I work, at the cemetery. A part of my family survived. It was my mother, my younger brother, and my grandparents, parents of my mother. So the reason why I'm actually here, it is because of what I survived and because of my loved ones who were killed in July and who are actually buried here at the cemetery.
Srebrenica meant very little to me. This is a topic I didn't learn in school. This is a topic of my family rarely discussed, and so my knowledge was very small. And when I came here and started to meet all the wonderful people at the Memorial Center, to research this topic and learn something new every day, Srebrenica for me is an integral part of my history. With me having Bosnian roots, it is something I have to know. It is something everyone, and this doesn't even so much depend on your roots, but especially if you have roots from the Western Balkans region, I think this is our history which we have to learn and learn from.
Well, it's still unbelievable that with all these nice surroundings here, you have at the same time a spot like this one who demonstrates the tragedy, the massacre, the genocide which has taken place. So yes, it's on the one hand, it's the amount of people who have been killed, the number of people who have been killed, and on the other hand, of course, it's individual stories which are told at the Memorial Center, which gives you a very emotional picture of what happened, which perhaps is a bit covered when you just see the many stones, gravestones, and the many names. But behind all these names are individual tragedies, and especially if you speak with people, as we could yesterday, who have lost a great part of their families and still have to live here or want to live here, it shows the tragedy of that genocide in Srebrenica.
So we have on the one side of the street the cemetery where every 11th of July the victims we find that year are buried, and then on the other side we have for one, this complex, which used to be the accumulatory factory, which then turned into the UN Dutch base, and we use for exhibitions, as you mentioned. And what the Memorial Center does, and why it is so important that the Memorial Center does what it does, is because it is slowly turning into an educational institution where people can come here, learn from, look at the cemetery, get a sense of how many people actually died here, and listen to the stories of survivors and research topics and go through the exhibitions.
Well, Memorial Center a couple of years ago, and when it was funded, it was not supposed to be as big as it is today. Everything that you see around is the complex of the Memorial Center. So basically it was supposed to be a cemetery where people can come, pray, where they can pay respect to the victims of the genocide. A couple of years before, we had several temporary exhibitions. We had memorial room, and however today we have so many exhibitions, so many things happening here, so many projects that we are trying to develop, and so many institutions have already signed a memorandum of understanding with us, meaning that we want to collaborate with different kinds of institutions, especially those who deal with the education and who deal with the similar, at least similar research area as Memorial Center. We are trying to portray ourselves in the public as an institution that should be a research center, a place for dialogue, for conversation, where young people and all kinds of people can come, talk, ask any sort of questions, research, to see our archives, see the documents, to research in a way about what happened here. So the doors of the Memorial Center are open to everybody throughout the whole year. We do not exist only to commemorate 11th of July in remembrance of the victims of Srebrenica genocide from July 1995. We exist as well, and we will continue to exist as a research center, as an open center for everybody. It's free to come. It will always be free to come.
I run the oral history program at the memorial. So my team filmed 330 interviews so far. We developed our own methodology of oral history and the questionnaire. First project was filming 100 people who were children during the genocide. They also donated their personal artifacts, those who had them. The second project was about filming all categories of survivors. So we are actually in the room, which is the direct result of that project. Apart from filming people's stories, we also filmed when they donated their personal artifacts. I also participated in the project, not only as a professional, as an interviewer or the head of the project, but also as a survivor. I told my story in the project, and I also donated an artifact, which is basically this letter here, which I wrote to my cousins who lived at the time in the Netherlands. They were my uncle's sons who moved to Netherlands at the beginning of the war in May, when their father was killed in Tuzla because of the shelling of Tuzla. And I was very close to them, and in 1994 I couldn't send them a letter. And I had a Dutch soldier as a friend, so I decided to give him that letter. The problem was that I actually did not provide an address in the letter. He kept the letter for 23 years, and when the first memorial exhibit was opened here, one of his friends brought me that letter, and later I decided to donate that letter in this project.
Well, I think there was a big disappointment about the role of the UN troops. Of course, the perpetrators are clear. That's the troops who have been under the command of Ratko Mladic. But nevertheless, to have high-ranking officers of UN troops who trusted in the treacherous words of Ratko Mladic and who trusted his promises to protect and save the people was absolutely wrong and irresponsible. And therefore the promise of the UN troops that they will create a space of safety and of protection was treacherous as well, and led the people to believe and finally to be killed by the troops of Ratko Mladic. So yes, the role of the UN has been very, very disappointing, and it shows that if you don't answer force by force, but just by nice words, does not help to save people's life.
The ICTY in The Hague dealt with facts, with evidence, with documents. So the work of the memorial is to work on emotions, to film what people survived in reality, as documents always, they are in a way very strict and they just deal with numbers and facts. But every individual is a story for him or herself. So this is why it's very important to film these for future generations to remember. Otherwise, it will be forgotten.
20 years ago, I believed much more to the reconciliation than now, unfortunately. For the example, before July last year, we had such a strong genocide denial here in Srebrenica, and especially it was strange because the loudest genocide denial was coming from the place where genocide took place, Unfortunately, also, the head of the local community used to deny genocide like this never happened. But yes, the part of our work is also that we are showing how much we hope that that catarsis will happen one day, that one day we will sit and we will talk and we will shake the hands, and we will say sorry for this, what happened to the Bosniaks in Srebrenica, In this moment, we can't tell if it will happen or when that will happen, but definitely we hope that it will.
The memorial will continue to tell the story and continue to develop content for visitors, but also educational packs, curriculums for students in primary, secondary, and schools and universities. We will be on alert, detecting denial and historical revisionism, and will remind the rest of the world if there is a potential threat for another war in Bosnia or potential possibility for another genocide.
The only thing that I really wish it could happen, at least in the near future, is the coming of the new generations, the younger generations of people who were born after the war, or maybe young people who were born during the war and maybe before the war as well. However, they are taught something different about this place and about the genocide in Srebrenica. Mostly they are taught to negate what happened here. They negate the perpetrators doing this. They consider those who are convicted war criminals, they can still consider them role models, which is something that I really wish it could be changed. And probably if people would come here, then they would probably be able at least to leave from this place thinking at least a bit different than they were taught back at home or at school as well.
This is a topic, and this is an institution in particular that I will never stop talking about, that I will never stop educating for. And I think it's not something I know that once I come back, this is going to be the next step in my work here, where I will try and talk to schools, maybe find a way to bring exhibitions to Vienna, to educate young people, or just to advocate for this topic in general in Austria. Because as I mentioned in the beginning, this whole institution and this topic in general is not something we learn in Austrian schools. And this is not something the Austrian society, I feel like, talks about a lot. And so there is a need to do this in Austria.
I was very impressed by the words of Hassan, who showed us yesterday at the cemetery the many tombs, who said people should go from here not with hate, but they should be better people afterwards. They should have these kind of sentiments of reconciliation. And it's not against the Serbs or against the Christians or against the Muslims on the other side. It's about to introduce into our minds humanity, the respect for everybody, respect for all the people, even if they have different religious, political, whatever beliefs. And of course, it would need also people to recognize the genocide, not to deny the genocide as a precondition for a fruitful debate, discussion, and for reconciliation.
We will have a good perspective of the future if we confront with the past, if we deal with it genuinely, how it should be done, not as politicians do, as a part of political promotion or political interests. It should be done by the book, absolutely.
We really hope that this place can teach the international community, locals and everyone who would like to learn what we can't let happen never again,